Hello everyone, welcome to the International Trade Policy. We are now moving to the chapter 4 of this course and we're going to discuss the strategies for international business. Because of globalization in the past decades, even small companies have been able to cross national borders and do business abroad. So what makes them successful? How they were able to surpass the challenges of the different political aspect, how they were able to comply with the social requirements, how they were able to position their company in international market. So for this chapter, we are going to understand the process of expanding and competing in globalized markets. Our objective in this chapter is to identify the different business strategies in entering foreign market. Secondly, let us familiarize with different foreign corporate law, competition law, and government regulations. And lastly, let us understand the different guidelines of entering foreign market. Okay, so again, our goal for this chapter is how could a company could successfully enter in international market or in other countries, facing several trade policy, facing several requirements in doing business in other country. As you know, entering in foreign market is crucial for global strategy. There are a lot of challenges that the company is about to face. The first challenge that the company may encounter is what we call liability of foreignness. So it means that there are some inherent disadvantage of foreign firms um, that they may encounter or experience in host country because of their non-native status. Let us accept the fact that when you are in foreign land, you are being treated differently compared to the local people. For example, in tourism, okay, if you are going to the Philippines, the famous island Boracay, the price of hotel compared to the local people is kind of different to the rate of foreigner who stayed in that hotel. There's a big difference, okay, since they are paying in dollars, okay, and they are expected to spend more than local people, and the possibility is that the hotel owner could give them a high rate compared to the locals. Let us not go by far here in Korea. Okay, if you can notice that the salary of the foreigner, okay, here in Korea is kind of lower, okay, than to the salary of the Korean nationalities, and that is your national policy. That's how trading, or that's how trade policy affects immigration, especially with the employment. The second challenge that may experienced by the foreigner in other country is the discrimination. Okay, the cultures affects the belief of the local people, especially with the social status. So there is an stigma that when they came from a developed country, they can overpower or they can dominate the local people. And if the foreigner came from the less developed country or they belong to the third world country, okay, they have the feeling of being intimidated. Here are some of the examples that I had gathered online. Okay, in China, there are African migrant workers and traders and students in the southern city of Guangzhou were tossed out onto the street because of the coronavirus threat. Okay, that I think this happened just recently. And here in Korea, um, way back October, okay, we have seen some news, okay, in television about the No Japan campaign. because this is related with the war between Japan and Korea in the 1940s. Okay, that's why every time you're going to celebrate your independence with Japan, okay, you always make there's a lot of campaign about not patronizing or not supporting or buying any Japanese product. In addition to the challenges that the firm may encounter in other countries is what we call a product recall. Okay, so in Singapore, they had pulled out or recalled a German bread because they found out some foreign matter in it. So if you are going to sell your product in international market, you have to make sure that your product is in high quality, because one of the policy is that when you present your product in international market, it should be in high quality and in high standard. In addition, you could see here another example. Okay, there are here is the company, okay, or the economy were made, like example United States, and the recall happened in United Kingdom. Another example is the passenger car or seat. The brand name is Ibiza. Okay, the country who is recalling it is the Portugal, and the country where it is made is in Spain. So remember, the production or the manufacturing plus the shipping of the product would takes a lot of cost. So that's why if you are not going to make a quality product, it will be a loss in your end. There are a lot of reasons and influences that makes the company decides if they are going global. A lot of countries are now opening their doors, inviting foreign investors, okay, that would help their economy grow. Globalization creates greater opportunities for firms in less industrialized countries to tap into more and larger markets around the world. So another reason why they are going global that is that they could find some raw materials that is cheaper. They could find a connection to the other supplier, and there is a greater demand for their product, and as well as they can explore new market. So what are this particular reason that draws and not draws or influence or not influence the firm to go global or not to go global? So let's proceed on understanding the propensity to the internationalization. So let us define first what is propensity. When we say propensity, this is the natural tendency of a company to incline to go in global. So what are the factors that gives a firm a reason to go global? So first, let us study the underlying factors of global business. Okay, so the company have to check. Okay, they have to check first the size of the firm. Is their capital big enough to go global? If the value of their product is really worth to sell in other country, including the quality. Okay, they also have to consider the wage earners employee, okay, the manpower, their capacity to compete globally, the power they use if they have a connection in other country, and also the raw materials that they have, the volume, the price of the raw materials that they are using, and also how many they can produce in a particular period of time, and their capacity of the factory or plant in case that there's a grant or there's a big demand for their product. Okay, another factor for firm, okay, to decide in going global is they have to check the size of domestic market. Okay, so they have to check the number of individuals in a certain market segment. Okay, is the domestic market is already saturated, or meaning you already sell, or you already accommodated, or you already captured your market locally. That's why you need to find new market, or your product has no market locally. That's why you need to find a new market in other countries. So those are the two factors of global business. Despite a lot of preaching by some experts in internationalization that every firm should go abroad, the reality is that not every firm is ready for it. Prematurely, venturing overseas may be detrimental to overall firm performance. It would be difficult, or it could create some distraction, okay, or some problem, okay, especially for small firms, okay, whose margin for error is very small. Like what happened with Walmart in Germany, they just burned their cash with no hope in sight. Okay, does not make sense either, because they were not able to study the culture, and they were not able to carefully assess, okay, the different strategy on how they're going to penetrate German market. Propensity means also motivation of some firms to go abroad, okay, while others are happy to stay at home. So let's check. First, we have the enthusiastic internationalizer. Okay, some small domestic are likely to be enthusiastic internationalizer because they can quickly exhaust opportunities in small country. Consider ABB of Switzerland, which specializes in large power generation equipment and many other products. Okay? The demand for such equipment in Switzerland is rather limited. As a result, 97% of ABB sales and 95% of its employees are outside of Switzerland. In short, they have a very limited market in Switzerland. That's why they want to go abroad to find new market, more market. In cell number 2, many small firms in a small domestic market are labeled follower internationalizer because they often follow their larger counterparts to go abroad as suppliers. Even small firms that do not directly supply large firms may similarly venture abroad because of the inherently limited size of the domestic market. A considerable number of small firms from small countries like Austria, Finland, Hong Kong, New Zealand, and Singapore are active overseas. So the small firm in small market in other country. In cell number 3, okay, the large firm in a large domestic market are labeled slow internationalizer because their overseas activities are usually but not always slower than those of enthusiastic internationalizer in cell number 1. For example, Walmart, okay? Walmart's pace of internationalization is slower when compared to its two global rivals based in relatively smaller countries like the Carrefour of France and Metro of Germany. An occasional internationalizer firm is a small firm in a large domestic market, so this firm will only occasionally seek international opportunities because their small size limits the resources available to become internationalized. However, they will seize opportunities for international expansion if available because their growth is limited domestically and due to the size of market share position. Examples of occasional internationalizer firms are those that do not have a dominant presence in their domestic market and will only focus on international expansion when the opportunity arises. Okay? Therefore, any small firm in the United States, the United Kingdom, China, and other large economies would be considered an occasional internationalization or internationalizer if they have both fully developed their international strategy. There are several models or different kinds of method on how you are going to enter in international market. Either you assess the environment, the external environment of your firm to position your strategy. That is your industry-based consideration. And if you want to enter in a foreign market using the best quality of resources that you have, that is resource-based considerations. And if you are taking advantage with the profile of your institution, your corporate profile, your capital investment, your influences, your connections in international trade, that could be the model of your foreign entry. So let's try to understand the motivation that push a firm to go global. Number one is the rivalry among established firms. They are being challenged to overcome the rivalries or the competitors in global market, thinking about they have a better product, they have a better strategy than them. Secondly is the higher entry barrier. So this motivates them that they want to win over this entry barrier, like for example the tax, documents, trade policy, okay, and some of the standards that you need to comply. Somehow, barriers to entry may benefit existing firms because they protect the revenues and profit. Why it will become favorable for them? Because since they are entering to the new market, they have a new technology, new ideas, and if the firm is big enough, they're going to go to a small market wherein they can dominate KD market, and that could contribute them a big market share. The next motivation is what we call the strategy of backward vertical integration. Okay, so it's more on the supplier power motivation. So if an Apple, okay, is just going to buy on the store of the chip they are going to use in their mobile phone, it will cost them a lot. That's why they are going to go directly to the supplier. Okay, so they made maybe some alliances, okay, that would give them a cheaper price of the microchip. And the fourth motivation is same, if buyer power is high, firm might do forward vertically integration, like initially they're going to buy the whole company, okay, and they're going to own their own shop. One of the most famous companies using vertical integration to reduce its overall cost and increase its profit is McDonald's. Not that they are only acquiring the business, but also most of the land that their stores are placed on, so they don't have to deal with the landlords or leasing costs. Even the property, the lot, they buy it so that they can own it. And the last consideration that motivates a firm to go global under industry base is that they had found out an opportunity that their products can be a substitute, okay, to the existing product in other country, and it could position them by giving maybe a low price compared to the existing product that they are using, that is a substitute of product motivation. So how about resource-based consideration? What motivates the firm to go global using their resources? Initially, if they have a very rare, a valuable, a difficult to substitute, and a difficult to imitate, definitely that could be a cutting-edge competitive advantage for the firm. Okay, and Also, they are doing like protecting their product through um, overseas patents, brands, and trademarks are legally protected. They apply some licenses to make their product, okay, to make their product authentic, and whoever use those products should ask a permission to the firm. The specific strategy under resource-based consideration for entering in foreign market is like licensing, franchising, or they could provide as services authorizing the local firm, okay, that will partner with them. So therefore, if a firm which successfully organizes complementary assets, they have a good asset in their origin home, then they are encouraged to go abroad. Under the institution base, okay, there are some considerations to enter to foreign business. Okay, example is the regulatory risk. What are the concerning entry requirements in other country? Secondly, are the trade barriers? How much the tax? What will be the policy in exporting? What could be the documents to be submitted? And what are the other trade policy that is applicable to the business? And lastly, how much will be your currency, K, or with the value of the currency to the other country? After knowing the different motivations of a firm to go global, let us answer the question where to enter. The answer is we have to match our strategic goals with location. So if our business is related to the natural resources seeking, therefore you have to locate in a specific area wherein you have an advantages, okay? Like you may possess natural resources and related transportation and communication infrastructure, like in oil in the Middle East and Russia and Venezuela. So if your strategic goal is pertaining to market seeking, okay, you have to go on a location wherein there is an abundance of strong market demand and customers willing to pay to your product. Example, the General Motors in China. Okay? And if your goal is for efficiency seeking, so you want to buy a low-cost product, you go in a country with economies of scale, low price of raw materials, a lot of supplies, and also there is a low labor rate. So you could take a look on the example of manufacturing in China, especially in Shanghai. And lastly, if your strategic goal is related to innovation seeking, you have to go in an area wherein there is an abundance of innovative individuals, firms, and universities. So you can go in Silicon Valley and Bangalore for information technology, and telecom in Dallas, and aerospace in Russia. Let us now identify the different modes of entry. How a firm can enter into one country. There are two categories. Either they enter through non-equity modes or equity modes. The primary difference between equity and non-equity partner is their income source. The equity partners derive at least half of their income from corporate profits or by ownership, so through buying and selling of stocks. For non-equity partners, typically they do not receive income as part of an ownership scheme. So they receive income through buying and selling. For example, we have the direct export and indirect export. What are the advantages for direct export? Okay, It is in the aspect of economies of scale in production. The more you produce, the lesser the expenses, and there will be a sort of better control over distribution. However, in terms of transportation costs for bulky products, you have to pay the high amount of money for shipping the products, as well as marketing distance from the customers and the risk of trade barriers. For the indirect export, you are going to concentrate on resources on production because someone or a broker or an agent or a representative is going to sell the products for you. So no need to directly handle export processes. However, the disadvantage are there are less control over distribution and inability to learn how to operate overseas because someone is doing that for you. Under non-equity modes, we have another form of market entry through contractual agreements like licensing or franchising, turnkey projects, research and development contracts, and co-marketing. For licensing and franchising, you are giving the rights to your partner in other country or another firm, okay, to use your product identity or the software or the system or the services that you are using. The advantages are it has a low development cost and low risk in overseas expansion because you are just giving them an authorities or an permit, okay, to use your product. But the disadvantage is that there's little control over the technology, or they may create or competitors, and lastly, they might have an inability to engage in global coordination. Some of the problem with the licensing or franchising, like here you have McDonald's, Zotteria, and Subway, is that the local owners might not follow the rules and regulation of franchising, because for the franchising and licensing, you are like there's a maintenance fee or like royalty fee for using the product. Some regulations or some company, they are requiring like 5% commission of the total sales. Then the turnkey project is that you are going to create a project and then turn it over to the government or other institution for usage. The advantages are that there's an ability to earn returns from process technology in countries where foreign direct investment is restricted. But the disadvantage as it are it may create efficient competitors and lack of long-term presence. And another risk for turnkey projects is that they might claim your project or your product and they're going to apply for the license of intellectual property rights to make it their own. So it will be gone in your hand. That's why it's kind of risky unless initially you're going to ask for the certification of your product in international property rights. And the next entry mode is through research and development contracts. Like you're going to have a partnership with other firms internationally to conduct a research study that will benefit your firm. The advantages is that you might have the ability to tap into the best location for certain innovations at low cost. It would give you a networking, it will give you an opportunities to meet other people in the industry that enhance and develop a technology or any innovation that will become helpful to your company. And the disadvantages are it is difficult to negotiate and enforce contract. It may nurture innovative competitors or it may lose core innovation capabilities. especially if your partner has a self-vested interest and they had seen the potential of the big return on investment. They might monopolize, and they might take the output of the research as their own. And lastly is co-marketing. Okay, when you say co-marketing, is that you're going to find a firm that will help you promote your product. The advantages is the ability to reach more customer. However, it could make some limitation with coordination. The operation might be out of control because of the distance barrier. And sometimes the communication resulted or because of the different cultures. Under equity modes, we have joint venture and wholly owned subsidiaries. And the wholly owned subsidiaries have different kinds. So the greenfield projects and acquisition. For joint venture or JV, it is a business arrangement in which two or more parties agree to pool or share the resources for the purpose of accomplishing a specific task. So this task can be a new project or any other business activities. But the disadvantage of this is that it could limit the equity and operational control. In every decision, you need to seek advice and consent with your partner. Okay, but this is one of the common entry mode that had been used um, throughout the time. And for our wholly owned subsidiaries, a wholly owned subsidiary is a company whose common stock is 100% owned by another company. So that is the parent company. How it will happen? Okay, by acquisition of the parent company, okay, to the majority of the stocks, like 51% and to 99% owned by the parent company. The advantage is that you have the 100% control, and there will be a protection of technology and know-how. However, some of the potential political problems and risks might happen and encountered, and it may incur high development costs. So acquisition is more on the purchase of one business enterprise by another. The acquisition of a rival corporation, mergers and acquisition. The common difference between acquisition and greenfield is that cross-border acquisitions involve firms trading heterogeneous corporate assets to exploit complementarities. While greenfield foreign direct investment involves setting up a new production division in the foreign country. Okay, to summarize on how a firm can enter into a global market is through non-equity modes or equity modes, either exporting or by contractual management or agreement, or for the equity by alliances or wholly owned. And then there are also specific category of entering into a market. I hope that you could understand this clearly because it is self-explanatory and I already presented it a while ago. In the general perspective of how you are going to enter into other country is first the firm should study the dynamism or the underlying factors affecting in global business. Secondly, you have to check your capacity, you have to check your resources capabilities, if you are able to offset the liability of foreigners, if you are ready, if you are prepared. And then you have to understand the rules of the game, okay, both formal and informal, governing competition in foreign markets. So you should know how they play the game, how they set standards, and how they do the competition. And lastly, you have to match your efforts in market entry and geographic diversification with a strategic goal. You know your goal, you know your capacity, and you know how are you going to implement those actions. It is not enough that you know the environment. It is not enough that you have a strategy, but technically you have to understand the legal aspect of your firm's decision in going global. So what are the common international business law? We have the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act compliance program. This policy pertains to no bribing. Netizens are prohibited, okay, to give favors to the government institution, okay, just to get something in return or that will benefit their business interests. The second law is the competition law that promotes or seeks to maintain market competition by regulating fair trading. A good example of that is the antitrust, anti-monopoly. An example of behavior that antitrust laws prohibit is lowering the price in a certain geographic area in order to push out the competition. Another example of antitrust violation is collusion. The third specific business law is the international taxation. It is the study or determination of tax on a person or a business subject to the tax laws of different countries. It is very important to know the incentives given to the foreign direct investors. There are a lot of countries who provide tax incentive because this way, when a government reduces the tax, it will assure that it will benefit the local people. In addition, we have intellectual property rights that will protect your products, your logo, your company identity. Then the fifth one is the foreign government regulations or the state rules and regulation. Example, if that country is going to allow you to buy a property or just for list. And also, what are the rules and regulations in custom administration, especially when you are going to ship your product to other country, and the franchise law. Okay, this pertains to the specific law, okay, of doing franchising business in other country, the relationships and registration requirements. Okay, this is the end of our discussion. I would like to wrap up everything that we have discussed. We talk about the different reasons or motivation that leads a firm to go global. We also discuss the different ways on how they can go global, the different market entries like for the equity aspect and non-equity aspect. We also define when are we going to enter into a market. Okay, in the general perspective is that first, you have to study the environment. Secondly, you have to check the capacity of your company if you are capable enough, okay, to compete, to design an quality of product, and then to have a high skilled or talented manpower that you can use, okay, to have a labor extensive company. And lastly, we identify the different law related to international business, okay, that will protect our company and anticipate the company's risk in doing global. I hope that you'd learn a lot from this chapter, okay, of the doing international business, knowing the different strategies, not just only the policy, but of course the totality on how you are going to operate your business in global market. Okay, so if you have any further question, just send me an email and I will be much willing to answer your queries. So this is your Professor Christian Joy Simpao. Have a nice day. Thank you, everyone.